Dear students of class 9A and 9B, welcome to my history and civics class. Today's lesson, the same lesson, chapter number 13, the Industrial Revolution. There are some points as I mentioned in the board. Please try to understand its basic concept and inner meaning of the points mentioned. Birth of socialism. You know, the great impact of the Industrial Revolution was the great impact of the Industrial Revolution was the division or the class division into working class and capitalists. This is the great impact of the industrialization. The great impact of the Industrial Revolution was class division into working class and capitalists. With the awakening of the working class, with the awakening of the working people or working class or family or factory workers, there was a demand that the employers would be the only owners of the means of production, so that the wealth produced can be shared more and more fairly. The socialists stood up to remove these evils. You know, the social thinkers like Karl Marx, Friedrich Engels, they called upon the workers of the world to unite and fight against exploitation and to save their rights. They strongly supported their stance. The socialists wanted to set up such a society that would be free of class division and exploitation. Actually, they wanted to save the interest of the factory workers from the capitalists. They wanted to protect them from being exploited by the capitalists. Next point number 2, need for factory reforms. In my previous class, I discussed that most of the factory workers lived under stagnation. They are not provided with medical facilities. As a result, their life had become very miserable and deplorable. But the socialists strongly demanded that facilities of all types should be provided for the workers who work in the factories. So in order to improve their lifestyle, they strongly supported their stand. Both of the two socialists, Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels, they came to a conclusion that until and unless they would be able to improve the lifestyle of the factory workers, until and unless they would be able to make them a part of a common share of the factory goods produced or wealth produced equally, they would keep on criticizing the policies, the industrial policies of the capitalists and factory owners. That's why Karl Marx wrote Communist Manifesto. Karl Marx wrote Communist Manifesto. In that very book, Karl Marx criticized the factory owners, criticized the capitalists, and also aimed at establishing the influence of the factory workers. Only he offered a good model of further socio-political reforms. Only because of that reason, my dear students, He published that very book, Communist Manifesto. And in this book, he explained that exploitation of the lower class is the motivating factors leading to the communist movement. That's why Marx's vision was clear. Marx's vision of communism was a classless, was a stateless system based on common ownership and free access and superabundance and maximum freedom for individuals to develop their rights, to develop their own capacities and skills and talents. That's why they believe that socialist economy would not base production of the creation of private properties. That's why they strongly supported the stance of the factory workers. And next point, trade unions. The idea of setting up trade unions was given by these two social thinkers, Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels. With the advent of the Industrial Revolution and its growth and development, that idea of trade union also was found out by these two social thinkers. According to that idea, it was decided that trade union would protect the interest of the common interest of the workers or working class people, the people who are bound to live under stagnation, under unhygienic condition. They were forced to consider various types of exploitation, and life had become miserable. They wanted to protect them from being violated, from being exploited. And as a result, that book, Communist Manifesto, Karl Marx wrote and openly declared that by means of the wealth produced by the workers would be equally shared more effectively and more fairly. There would be no unequal treatment in the system of factory. Everywhere there would be equal treatment for the factory workers, and capitalists would not have any hope for better earning. Whatever they would earn with the help of the workers. So there would be equal distribution of property, equal distribution of wealth, and the workers would become a part of it, so that they must provide manual labor more and more effectively in the interest of themselves. That not only the factory workers, not factory owners, not only the capitalists would be benefited with that system, not like that, but also the factory workers would be benefited with that system. And next point, contributions of the socialists. Contributions of the socialists. The idea of socialism, which also gave a strong, the idea of socialism, which also gave a strong stand, and the factory workers were benefited with it. This system also encouraged the unprivileged section of people who had not expected that they would be benefited in the long run. And this type of things also encouraged the classless society, the form of classless society, the form of stateless society, where state would control them impartially, and there would be no impartiality throughout the country. The workers of the world were called upon by Friedrich Engels and Karl Marx to unite and to fight against exploitation, against injustice. That's why the system, the working conditions which were poor, the working conditions of the factory workers, which were poor and they were paid low wages, that system was totally changed. Factories did not follow any environmental regulations. Laws and acts had to be passed to regulate the working conditions of the people. Formation of trade unions also helped them to spread of socialist ideals and ideas, and also helped to bring some changes in favor of factory workers. As a result of it, trade unions played a vital role and removed their all kinds of disadvantages and helped them to gain better and better conveniences and their rights they deserve. And in that theory, society was looked as an organic whole, and afterwards the actual terms, a society state is one in which the government owns and controls all individuals, where everyone would be treated equally. There would be no unequal treatment. These ideas that the industrial revolution set in motion of the West desire, the British government of India was forced to accept the demands of the workers. Because our country, India, also had become a colony of the British. Naturally, the British government of India was forced to accept the demand of the socialists. The socialists encouraged them to accept the demand of the factory workers, and only because of the influence of the socialist leaders or socialists. The wealth used for making more and more wealth is known as capital, and the capitalists are the members. The capitalists are the owners of this capital. So the idea of capitalism was of no use. It could only be achieved through exploitation. The capitalists felt it. The capitalists felt that it could only be achieved through exploitation. That's why they must keep on exploitation. Otherwise, they would be unable to earn better income, and the working hours which they fixed for the workers should be increased, but not. It must not. They would not make it easier to them. The result of the division of labor is to lower the value of the factory workers in terms of and wages of individual worker. In fact, capitalism had serious economic, social, and political consequences, and it in turn led to imperialism. It in turn led to the concept of imperialism. Imperialism means powerful countries started influencing over weak countries by showing their power, by showing their financial strength. As a result of it, the concept of it gave a birth of a new concept, that was imperialism. So the Industrial Revolution witnessed a new era where new concepts also were formed, and this kind of things also encouraged the social thinkers who started criticizing them. Karl Marx, Friedrich Engels, they issued Communist Manifesto. In that very book, Karl Marx explained that the exploitation of the lower class is the motivating factors. And not only that, Karl Marx believed that a socialist economy would not best production. At the same time, in Soviet Russia, which adopted the concept of communism, while other European countries like Britain, France began to follow socialism. There was a difference between socialism and communism. The communists wanted to establish a classless society where workers would be controlled by the state, and in the socialist, in the concept of socialism, the workers would be benefited with the production of the factories that would be shared, more and more fairly, and everyone would gain profit from from the production of the factory. And not only that, the workers would protect themselves from being exploited by the capitalists. It is the concept of the socialism. So in Soviet Russia, the idea of communism was adopted, but in European countries like England, France, they accepted the concept of socialism. The capitalism and socialism, these two concepts, capitalism, socialism, communism, these were the outcomes of the Industrial Revolution. The result of this division of labor is to lower the value in terms of will and wages of the individual worker. Not only that, the children and women who were forced to provide manual labor, they also have become a great factor, because they preferred to employ unskilled workers, the factory owners and factory owners and capitalists. They preferred to employ unskilled workers in order to save their money, since these children and women were jobless people. That's why they wanted to take its advantages. They never cared of their health. They never cared of their health. Neither they were given health facilities, medical facilities, medicines, nor they were considered to be a part of the production in the factories and industries. And on the contrary, they were badly humiliated, unjustly treated, and cruelly exploited. Only because of that reason, the two social thinkers, Karl Marx and Frederick Engels, they combinedly decided to protect the interests of the factory workers and introduce a new system. As a result, it gave the birth of two concepts, socialism and communism. And in Communist Manifesto, the book which was written and published by Karl Marx, also encouraged millions of workers of the world. As a result, both of the two social thinkers called upon the workers of the world to unite and to fight against injustice, to fight against exploitation. In order to protect their rights, they all were supported by these two world leaders, two socialists. Up to this, my dear students, thank you.